Good evening, and let's start with the third last one talk. My name is Michal Sanger. I'm coming from Czech Republic. I work in kiwi.com in our Prague office. My role is principal engineer, which means I'm pushing forward big decision based on some technologies. Currently, I'm pushing mostly GraphQL. I also try to push monorepo, which I will slightly touch during my talk. So, first question to the audience, who is using GraphQL in production? And is not from kiwi.com. Oh, okay. And not on production, anyone is playing, some hobby project, something like that? Okay, I will mostly focus on our tools and open source stuff around GraphQL. So if you are about to start, we have also shared some talks. So you have resources to learn GraphQL. Of course, best way how to learn GraphQL is join kiwi.com. That's so before you even start doing any project with GraphQL, I highly recommend set up your project. So first thing I want to mention here is our eslint config we published. All the links, all the package names are on the last slide, and I will share the slide on meetup.com page. So our eslint, not every project has to be based on the Airbnb eslint config, which is pretty popular. We deployed our own solution because it covers our needs better. So if you want to use eslint properly configured for React Native, using RealEye, having a prettier, and all these things, try a kiwi.com eslint config. It's simple, you just add it to your project, create .eslint.js file, and you are good to go. The sooner you make it, the better, otherwise you will get probably a lot of errors. And this package also comes with eslint runner, sorry. And that's because of our projects are getting really big, and the eslint takes a lot of time. So we create a runner that's using Jest. So it's parallel, it checks only the changed files, so it's much more faster, and it also automatically fix what is fixable. So you just create a little bit different config. It's part of our documentation. Give it a try. It's really good. This comes also in hand with our Babel preset. So if you are into using Flow, who is using Flow here? And who is using TypeScript? Yeah, expected. Well, we started with typed JavaScript pretty early, and Flow was definitely better. Right now, TypeScript is getting much more traction, but we have all we need with Flow, and there is so far no reason to migrate. And also there is no brave guy who would be the migration manager, let's say, the pusher of the idea. So we are very happy with Flow, and we also support it in our Babel preset. JSX, class properties, relay fragments, very handy thing for GraphQL on a front end. And all the syntactic sugar is available, so use our preset. And now something really handy if you are calling some APIs, some REST APIs. So we deployed our own fetch, and it brings features like configuration of how many retries should be performed before you give up, also some timeouts, and also the error handling. Why is it that handy for a GraphQL? It's because of this, let's say, design, because when we started with GraphQL, our backend was and still is providing only REST API. So we created sort of GraphQL proxy. So the clients are communicating with GraphQL queries. The proxy translates this query into many REST API calls and calling our REST APIs. And for this, we had a lot of issues because of unstable REST APIs and this stuff. So we created the fetch. The usage is pretty simple. You just define, for example, how many retries with a timeout between those, what's the timeout, and you are happily using it. Very handy is also the error handling. So there are defined error types. So your UI can react based on the specific error that happened. So give our fetch a try. We also open source our solution for monitoring of our GraphQL backend, because like officially probably only one solution so far was Apple Engine, but that became pretty expensive for our traffic. So we created a tool that is based on logs.io, and we are just sending there the data. So we are logging handy things like what queries are being called, what variables, what were the deprecated fields in the query, duration, of course, and the HTTP headers. So it's based on logs.io, but currently we are moving to Datadog. So the new version will be supporting Datadog, and if anyone here wants to maintain the logs.io, please step forward and create some merge requests. It looks like this. It's simple dashboard in logs.io, and it provides a lot of useful information for us. Another backend thing we published is BCBreak Checker. So when you are doing your GraphQL backend, by coincidence, you can introduce some BCBreak. So this script is made to be part of your continuous integration, where you get error that you changed your schema that way. That is BCBreak. It's focused also on developer experience, so you get some hints how to avoid the reported BCBreak, and it also creates a log. If you force push the change, you get the log automatically created, the log of changes. So it's part of the snapshot of the schema, and it can be used for any other automatic things, like, I don't know, notifying users, for example. And as I mentioned, we are using a RealEye, and when people are starting exploring GraphQL, they tend to start using Apollo, because obviously Apollo has much more better documentation. So one thing we try to get the situation better is to publish our own RealEye wrapper that comes together also with some documentation. Anyway, this wrapper gives you like setup for logging and caching batch requests. Also, it supports flow the proper way. So if you are about to start using GraphQL, I highly suggest to use RealEye with our package, because a lot of things is ready to use there. One of the example is the logger. This is like something very handy in your Chrome developer tools. So you get some insight what's happening when you are using the GraphQL on the client. But to make it even better, we also deployed to GitHub the RealEye example, which is basically how to the previous package. So you can learn from code how to do the simple fetching, how to do paginations, 3 different ways of pagination. Check the project on our GitHub, and basically when you run it, this is how it looks like. So it's using our public GraphQL and do some pagination through our locations. As you can see, it's using Orbit because it's very good design system. Part of the GitHub project is also links to the videos we did on our internal workshop. So you can watch basically how we try to educate our own developers how to use RealEye. It's recorded, it's published, and let us know if you found it useful. So that's something we try to do to erase the gap between onboarding into RealEye. Hopefully you will find it useful. I also want to talk quickly about how we work with the open source, how we manage. So we have one monorepo, and the reason for it is we want to iterate fast, we want to have consistency with our eslint and flow configs, because in our incubator tribe, we quite often create some new project. And we found out that like first 1 or 2 weeks, the tasks are only set up CI, set up flow, set up eslint. So we came up with idea to try the monorepo, as many big players are trying or using. Facebook, Twitter, Google, all these huge companies are using monorepo. So our monorepo is based on Yarn workspaces. We have one directory per project, and we invested a lot of effort into the tooling. The repository is currently like 300 megabytes, and it's still growing. The Google announced that their monorepo is about 40 terabytes, so we still have where to grow. And we also published a package with some useful functions that we use for monorepo, like iterating through the workspaces, finding package JSONs, and doing some things with them. So how do we do that? We have one monorepo, and we put some projects to the GitHub. For that, we created Shipit, which is a pretty smart tool that takes the project from its directory in the monorepo and mirror it to the GitHub. And for when someone would create a pull request on a GitHub, we have imported, which mirrors the pull request to our private GitLab and creates a merge request from that. It's inspired by a Facebook Shipit, which is written in Hack. So our Shipit is written in JavaScript, and you can check the source code on a GitHub. The configuration is pretty simple. It's readable. So you can see you just define which organization and what should be the name on a GitHub. And then there is a very handy configuration of filters or transformation that should be done with the source code before it's published. So you can see that we also have some prepared flow config for the RealEye example. And during the publishing, this flow config is put in the root of the project, because obviously it cannot be in the root of the whole monorepo. And we can do many more different transformation with the code before we publish it, and also before we import it. So that's the way how we handle the open source process. And mentioning the open source, so we are doing quite a lot of things for the open source. I think everyone here heavily depends on open source. So I dedicated this slide to just say, please support, share your love, at least give a star if you are using it and you find some bug. Create an issue, don't just keep it for yourself or tell your friends it's crap. At least let us know something is not working. Create an issue, or even better, create a pull request so we can import it in our private monorepo and merge it there and then publish again. All the links I mentioned here are on this slide. There is even more. We have like things with some handy JavaScript functions, some GraphQL utils, we have tool how to publish to NPM. All these things are open sourced. And I would also like to mention like a call to action. If you want to learn some cool JavaScript technologies, we are at the end of next month, we are doing a JS Weekend, which is gonna take place in Croatia, in Zagreb. We will take care of your transport, food, drinks, accommodation, all the body needs. And we will teach you during these 2 days many cool things. So please register. We will send some simple tests just to match that, or just to align with our technical requirements. So please register, and if you pass the test, you will be invited to Weekend in Zagreb. Thank you very much. And we have some questions. Pau, is it sorted by the popularity, or shall I do something? So it's sorted. Which rules do you find better in Kiwi's eslint configuration that makes you create your own? Any particular rule? Many of those. For example, we integrated the prettier, so it's just standardized. Also, a lot of things around React. Basically, we don't do much with the rules, like we would be discussing rule by rule and creating everything by ourselves. We are just creating a compilation of best practices from different ESLint configs we found out useful, and we just make a promise that we will maintain it because we are using it. I think we are more strict. We are very, very strict with the rules and the way how the code should look like. So, but I think it's a good thing to be giving too much freedom. Sometimes is not best. So, and what are the trade-offs between using RealEye and Apollo client? Well, I can speak more about RealEye because, again, when we started with GraphQL, RealEye was more mature, more features were available. For us, it's much more well designed. It had killer features like RealEye compiler, something that goes through your source code and pick up the GraphQL fragments, compile them, optimize them into one big query, send it to server, get the data, and distribute the values to the components. So you don't have to use any Redux or any state management. And this is something that helps you to maintain huge projects. Apollo was missing something like that. I heard they got something, but I'm not using it, so I hardly can answer that. The RealEye is mainly maintained by guys in Facebook, and Facebook is open sourcing only things they are using on production. So RealEye is a great tool for Facebook, and they have, I don't know, 1 billion of users, huge code base. They somewhere mentioned they have more than 40,000 components using the RealEye fragments. So we are using RealEye and we are happy with it. I would be really happy to listen to some talk, like someone who's using Apollo, like really, let's say, enterprise way. So I'm not using Apollo, and hardly I can compare these two. Okay, all questions answered. Okay, thank you very much.